Hey everyone, this is Gaming Solo coming to you on my way to another bunker on Microtech, leaving a defeat. The game is still in alpha, and I took a bunker mission, and everybody outside spawned, but nobody inside spawned. At least not the people I was supposed to get rid of, but all the security was down there. So that was an interesting little bug, but here I am traveling away from that into my next location, which is not going to end well, as you'll see later when I accidentally shoot a friendly NPC because he gets between me and a non friendly NPC, which spurs the background video of the next video I'll be doing, which is me dealing with a crime stat and getting blown up at Grimhex and all the fun shenanigans that happened with that. But for now, we're going to have the peaceful shooting as we discuss today's topic, which is the narrative and storytelling of Star Citizen and the current state. Now, I have kind of a high hope for this part of the game. I never played Freelancer, but I heard that it was a really, really good story narrative and game in general, but the story was what I've heard is really, really good there. I really enjoy a great story, no matter the media that it's in, whether it's television, movies, books, or video games. A great narrative is always a great tool to draw people in and to kind of snag you and make you feel immersed in the instance of a video game. But I gotta say, I've been pretty disappointed so far in my about year and a half of playing Star Citizen and what they've done. And I'm gonna go over some of that with us today and find out y'all's opinions on it. But the first major problem I have is the delivery of the narrative. Now they did do an improvement where you can see kind of almost like a news shot when you're loading in this most recent patch 4.0.2, which is a nice little touch. However, the problem I have with it is it's a lot of reading. So for some people that's great. I feel like having some kind of voice acted news bulletin, kind of like what they did in the trailer for the first part of Save Stanton, that would be much better. Save Stanton started out as possibly being a great narrative because the presentation was voice acted, decently voice acted. It wasn't, it wasn't going to win an Oscar, but it was decently voice acted, and the trailer was, pretty well put together. Um, but the problem is the interconnectivity between these missions, the lack of voice acting, and having to read everything in the mobiGlass kind of creates this sense that you're just kind of going through motions, and that's if you are reading it, right? I completely, honestly, don't read most of it unless I need clues as to where to go, like the current missions that are going on where you have to go to a depot to get the new haulable resource that you have to sell, or you buy and take to the locations and put them in the cargo hangar. All that stuff, it would be 10 times better if it was voice acted. They need to start implementing more interactivity and voice acting and things that are going to engage us. Having to read all of this narrative in a video game, it's one thing if I'm sitting down to read a book and things are calm and I'm in that mindset. When I'm in a game, especially a game that's a first person shooter, I want things delivered to me in a more realistic and active way. Not the passive, here's some text, read this wall of text, then you kind of know what's going on. And so that's kind of my first criticism. My second criticism is the lack of, how do I say it? I'm not really compelled by the story at this point. So if you're not familiar, there was a Save Stanton event that started the story where there was a group called the Slicers, and they were attacking in Stanton randomly. Nobody knew why, and you're kind of going out and helping engage with them. And then you, at the end, you took some supplies to the Pyro Gateway in preparation for 4.0, where you were going to go to Pyro and continue the mission chain. Well, we get to Pyro and we find out that there's three factions, and one's kind of a newcomer on the scene, and they kind of want to just burn everything down. And and start from scratch in Pyro. And it turns out that that was the slicers, and there was this whole big conspiracy and false flag and all this stuff. Could have been really, really cool if we had any kind of connection to any of the people or locations or anything. Any kind of connection to anything would have been spectacular. But it was so disjointed, disconnected, and the delivery was so subpar that there was no real impact. And they ended up having to on one of their video events, through the week, they had to give away the spoiler that the slicers were the that third faction in Pyro. Spoiler alert. Don't worry, it wasn't that big of a when it was revealed. Whether they revealed it or you figured it out with the in-game narrative that you had to read a text wall for, um, or one thing that the creator Salty Mite pointed out, he noticed that the uniforms of the Frontier fighters versus the slicers were the same, like the armor and the colorings and stuff. And turned out he was onto something. He thought because the game is an alpha and it's in such a pretty unpolished state that they just accidentally didn't change out the models and they just used the same models. But it was actually apparently a hint that we were dealing with the same group of people in Pyro as we were in Stanton. So um, they just have a lot of work to do on their narrative. I'm hoping that the main story that's releasing with Star Citizen will be a little more polished and put together. But what makes me nervous is the same team that's working on that are the ones putting out these side missions. And while side missions historically are not these big amazing things that that eclipse the main story and the narrative and the immersion, they gotta do something, right? They have to be something that makes you want to do them. They have to be compelling to a level. So it's really a drag. I was kind of hoping with this focus of polishing that they and the bringing in the narrative content that we'd start seeing some cool stuff, but it's just not hitting. Um, and maybe it is for you. It's just not hitting for me. I guess I'm kind of old school. Like one of my favorite games and stories of all time would be like the first Coder, and the big reveal there that nobody saw coming, right? And it almost feels like they were trying to do a kind of nobody saw it coming. Oh, this group of people is that group of people. We tricked you, and we had some of you guys aligned with them. It just doesn't really do it for me. It's not as big of an impact as that was back then. They really got to start coming up with something new and really got to start getting some named characters in there. I know that we have named characters in the one player narrative with Squadron 42, and you kind of, the goal there is you get attached to characters and you see character growth there. But they need that in this game too if they're going to put narrative in. There needs to be people that we know. If you look at any other MMO, even though it is an MMO and it's massive and you're playing with other players and that's the concentration, there's still NPCs in the world that that mean something in it. Whether the story's good or not, there's still those anchors within the game, those leaders within your faction, or whatnot, and that's what the narrative of the whole game leans on. We haven't had any of that yet, other than the one I can't even remember his name right now. There's the one mission giver that people take as missions and they make lots of money, and that's great. We need more of that. We need more people that we can see and interact with and talk to, that can help drive this narrative forward. So, what do you guys think? Am I off base here? Do I need to wait? I mean, we can't keep hiding behind Alpha forever. They're putting the narratives in, right? And these are events that aren't going to happen ever again. So this is the one shot they have at telling the story they want to tell. Let me know what you think. If you like this kind of content, you can hit the like and subscribe to keep it coming. Tell me what you think in the comments. I look forward to reading your comments, and I will catch you guys in the verse.